The day it happened didn't start strange, but it ended in a way that left an entire restaurant speechless and the internet on fire. It wasn't just another incident of casual racism or another video of someone refusing service. What happened that afternoon at a popular upscale bistro in downtown Atlanta was so surreal, so full of unexpected turns and uncomfortable truths, that even the most seasoned staff couldn't believe what they were seeing. At first, it was just a woman in pearls, a simple lunch reservation, and one waiter doing his job. But within the hour, that job would be questioned, his dignity insulted, and a hidden truth would flip the entire story on its head. People always think they know who someone is based on how they look. But in this case, the customer made a costly mistake. Because the man she tried to humiliate, he wasn't just a black waiter. And Karma, as it turns out, was sitting at the next table. The place was packed. Elegant decor, soft jazz playing, the smell of fresh lemon and seared salmon floating through the air. The kind of restaurant where guests left glowing reviews and took selfies near the imported chandelier. That day, the floor staff was short 2 servers, and so the manager had asked Malik, one of the most professional and composed waiters on staff, to cover Section C. Malik, a man in his late 40s with short-cropped salt and pepper hair, a strong jawline, and piercing brown eyes, was always calm, always respectful. He wore the black vest and crisp white shirt like a badge of honor, treating every customer with warmth, no matter how rude or entitled. And today, that would be put to the test. At exactly 1:12 p.m., a white woman in her early 60s walked in, holding a Louis Vuitton purse like it was a trophy. Her hair was platinum, curled perfectly into place, her lips tight. She looked like the kind of woman who complained about her salad being too green. The hostess greeted her politely, showed her to a booth near the window, and handed her a menu. Everything seemed normal, until Malik approached with a soft smile and a notepad. She didn't even look up when she said it. "I'd prefer someone else." Malik blinked. "I'm sorry?" "I said," she repeated louder, "I'd prefer someone else serve me." There was no confusion in her tone. She glanced up, made eye contact, then slowly looked him up and down with disdain. The implication was crystal clear, and the silence at nearby tables thickened like wet concrete. One couple even stopped mid-bite. "I can assure you," Malik said calmly, "you'll be taken care of with professionalism." She leaned in, lowering her voice, but not enough to keep others from hearing. "I don't want someone like you handling my food. Just get me someone else." It was the way she said "someone like you" that sent a chill across the floor. Malik stood still, jaw tight but eyes steady, as he processed the humiliation in real time. He turned without another word and walked to the manager, who was already approaching, having seen the exchange. The manager, a nervous man in suspenders with too much gel in his hair, tried to de-escalate by assigning another server. Malik didn't argue. He never did. He just moved to help someone else. But something about the way the room reacted, the gasps, the awkward glances, made this different. Word spread like wildfire. One woman texted her friend under the table. A man at the bar recorded the aftermath. And what no one knew was that Malik's story wasn't what it appeared to be on the surface. That woman had no idea who she'd just embarrassed. And she certainly didn't know who had been sitting behind her, quietly watching the whole thing unfold. At the next booth, dressed in a sleek blue blazer and dark jeans, sat a black woman in her 50s with high cheekbones and confidence in her eyes. Her name was Vanessa, and she was a powerhouse in the local business world, a quiet investor in several high-end restaurants, including this one. But what made her presence even more critical was that she wasn't here for lunch. She was here for a surprise inspection. Silent ownership allowed her to evaluate staff without them knowing who she was. And the moment she heard what the woman said to Malik, she reached into her bag, pulled out a sleek black notebook, and began writing. Meanwhile, the woman who refused Malik's service now had a new waiter, a young white man named Trevor, fresh out of college, clearly uncomfortable but doing his best. She ordered with smug entitlement, acting as though nothing had happened. When Trevor accidentally brought her sparkling water instead of still, she snapped at him too. But by then, a few guests had already spoken to the manager, quietly urging him to say something, to not let this slide. The tension had evolved into something worse, anticipation. The whole place was waiting for karma to do its thing. But the twist that was coming? No one saw it coming, not even Malik. At 1:52 p.m., just before the woman's food arrived, the manager received a text. He looked up, pale, eyes darting to Vanessa's booth. She gave him a firm nod. Seconds later, he walked up to the woman's table and politely asked her to come with him. She frowned, insulted. "Why?" she asked sharply. "What is this about?" "I'd just like to speak to you privately," he said, visibly sweating now. She rolled her eyes and followed him. He led her into the back office. Inside was Vanessa, now holding a manila envelope and a sharp, emotionless expression. The woman's face twisted into confusion. "Who is this?" "I'm one of the owners," Vanessa said coolly. "And I happened to witness your treatment of one of our most valued employees. So I'd like to ask you something, face to face." The woman scoffed. "Excuse me? Are you serious?" "I am," Vanessa said. "Very serious. Because what you did wasn't just discriminatory. It violated the policies we've implemented to protect our staff. And while the staff remained professional, I don't have to." The woman's voice wavered now. "Look, I didn't mean—" Vanessa held up a hand. "Save it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Immediately. And you will not be welcomed back to this establishment or any affiliated with our restaurant group ever again." The woman's jaw dropped. "You can't do that." "Oh," Vanessa said, standing. "I can. And I just did." The woman stormed out, red-faced and furious, clutching her purse like a weapon. When she stepped back into the main dining area, eyes followed her every step. Someone clapped. Another guest called out, "Don't come back!" But it didn't end there. As she reached the front door, a man stood up near the window, tall, well-dressed, and holding a phone. "Hey," he said, "smile for the internet." The woman froze, realizing she was being filmed. Her face turned ghostly pale. She shoved the door open and vanished into the daylight. Back in the kitchen, Malik leaned over the sink, trying to breathe through the weight in his chest. He didn't ask for any of this. He didn't want revenge. But what came next shook even him. Vanessa entered the kitchen quietly and handed him the envelope. "Open it," she said. He looked confused, but obeyed. Inside was a formal letter and a business card. The letter offered him a promotion, regional floor manager, overseeing several restaurants. The card had Vanessa's name, title, and her handwritten note. "Because you stood with dignity, we stand behind you." He stared at it in disbelief. "I don't understand." "You didn't need to fight," she said. "You already won." The staff around him erupted in quiet applause. But the real storm hadn't even hit yet. Because that video, the one filmed as the woman left, it was already going viral, and within the next 48 hours, the internet would uncover her identity. She wasn't just a customer. She was someone with influence, someone with a past. And the skeletons in her closet were just starting to rattle. The real question now wasn't what she had done. It was who she'd done it to, and who Malik really was, because he wasn't just a waiter. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline and lights flickered on in the restaurant's patio seating, Malik's story was already everywhere. A guest's cell phone video showing the white woman storming out after being banned had exploded across social media. The caption? This woman refused to be served by a black waiter. Karma clapped back in real time. Within hours, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok flooded with reactions. People called Malik a hero of quiet dignity. Vanessa, the sharp and composed part owner, was being praised as a business icon for defending her staff. But what no one expected was what came next. Because once the woman was identified, her full name, profession, and political affiliations, the entire situation caught fire. Her name was Martha Whitmore, a former city council member from a conservative district just outside Savannah. She had built her career pushing outdated values, smiling into cameras while hiding her disdain behind polite condescension. Her face had graced campaign billboards, charity fundraisers, and local morning shows. But now it was front and center in a different way, as the face of public disgrace. The backlash came like a tidal wave. Reporters descended on her gated neighborhood. Sponsors pulled funding from events she was connected to. Former colleagues distanced themselves publicly. A board she sat on quietly removed her name from its website. Her carefully curated life was unraveling faster than her lawyers could react. Meanwhile, Malik stayed silent, by choice. He declined interviews, politely turned down podcast invitations. Vanessa offered to arrange press if he wanted it, but he simply shook his head and said, "Let it pass." His new role as regional floor manager began immediately. It was a well-deserved promotion, but the attention that followed still made him uncomfortable. He never wanted to be the center of a viral moment. Not like this. Not for enduring humiliation. But what no one realized yet was that Malik's story ran much deeper than that one afternoon. There was something in his past, a chapter he'd closed long ago, that Martha's words had unintentionally ripped open. And now that the internet had lifted the curtain, someone else had found him. Someone who hadn't spoken to him in nearly 2 decades. It started with a letter, no return address. Just a name scribbled across the front, E. Templeton. Malik opened it cautiously, standing in his tiny home office at the back of his house. The note inside was simple but jarring. "I saw what happened. I need to speak with you. It's about your father." He stood frozen for nearly a full minute. Then he pulled out a worn photo from his desk drawer, one he hadn't looked at in years. It showed a younger version of himself, barely 20, standing beside a tall man in a military uniform. His father. A man whose name used to mean something. A man who vanished in scandal and silence. No one had spoken of him in years, not even Malik. The next day, Malik met Vanessa for coffee at a quieter location across town. The vibe was different from the restaurant, less polished, more grounded. Vanessa listened as Malik told her about the letter, the photo, and the name E. Templeton. Her eyes narrowed. "You think it's real?" "I don't know. But if someone knows about my father, I need to hear them out." Vanessa nodded. "Then we go together." The meeting was arranged discreetly at a neutral location, a small bookstore cafe that doubled as a community event space. The person waiting was an elderly white man in a brown trench coat, hair thinned, eyes tired but focused. He introduced himself as Ed Templeton, a retired journalist. And the first words out of his mouth changed everything. "Your father didn't disappear because of shame, Malik." He was silenced. Templeton explained that Malik's father, Colonel Harold Jennings, had been a whistleblower inside a covert military unit tied to illegal surveillance operations on American citizens. When he attempted to go public, he was discredited and discharged. The headlines at the time painted him as unstable, even dangerous. But it was all a cover-up, and Templeton had the files to prove it. He slid over a USB drive. "Your father tried to protect people. They buried him for it. I've been trying to find someone who could pick up where he left off." Malik was stunned. His whole life, he believed his father had broken under pressure, left the family to escape his mistakes. But the truth was darker and far more powerful. He had been a good man destroyed by a system afraid of exposure. That night, Malik stayed up reading old documents, redacted reports, and personal letters hidden for decades. The deeper he dug, the more it all clicked. The way people treated him differently. The strange job interviews that ghosted him. The moments of unexplained surveillance. It wasn't random. He had inherited not just his father's face, but his target on the back. But this time, Malik wasn't going to hide. He met with Vanessa the next morning and showed her everything. She listened without interrupting. Then, after a long pause, she leaned back and said, "You're not just here to manage restaurants anymore." They formed a plan, something bold, something big. With Vanessa's connections, they began organizing a public campaign to reopen the investigation into Colonel Jennings's forced discharge. They launched a website, curated the story with verified documents, and prepared a press release for major outlets. And within a week, the story dropped. Former waiter who went viral speaks out. "My father was silenced by the U.S. military." The backlash was immediate and terrifying. Anonymous threats poured in. One night, Malik came home to find his front door slightly open. Nothing was taken, but someone had left a single bullet on his kitchen counter. Vanessa moved him to a private apartment owned by one of their business partners and hired private security. But Malik didn't back down. He gave interviews, he named names, and the more he spoke, the more the public rallied behind him. The restaurant group became a symbol, not just of anti-racism, but of truth-telling. Malik's quiet grace had turned into unshakable courage. Vanessa became a trusted figure in activism circles, and somewhere in the chaos, a congressional subcommittee took notice. A hearing was scheduled, testimony requested, the Jennings case reopened. But not everyone was happy. 3 weeks after the hearing announcement, a man approached Malik outside a grocery store. He wore a suit too crisp for the weather and dark glasses that reflected sunlight like mirrors. He leaned in and whispered something Malik would never forget. "You don't know how deep this goes. Stop digging, or you'll bury more than just your past." Then he walked away. Malik stood there, heart pounding, breath caught. He called Vanessa. She responded with a single phrase, "We go harder." The night before the hearing, Malik sat alone in his hotel room. He looked in the mirror, saw the face of his father looking back. He whispered, "This time, they'll hear you." The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Media lined the steps. Protesters waved signs of support. Malik stepped to the microphone, placed his statement on the stand, and looked directly at the senators. His voice never shook. He told them everything: his father's service, the betrayal, the silence, the truth. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then applause. The subcommittee promised an internal review. A senator from New York hugged Malik personally. Vanessa stood in the corner, watching it all unfold like a proud sister. Justice wasn't guaranteed, but it was finally on the table. Later that night, Malik returned to the restaurant, not to work, but to thank the staff. They welcomed him with cheers, hugs, and a banner that read, "Welcome home, Mr. Jennings," his last name finally spoken with pride. But as the night settled and champagne flutes clinked, a call came through on Vanessa's phone. She answered, froze, then handed it to Malik, a deep voice on the other end. "I know who you are now, Malik, and we're not done." The line went dead. Vanessa looked at him. What was that? Malik pocketed the phone, exhaled slowly, and said, "The next chapter." And just like that, the man who once stood silent while a customer humiliated him in front of a restaurant full of strangers had become something else entirely. A man with purpose, a legacy reborn, and a storm just beginning to rise.